Joining us now, NBC News national enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, host of the Independent Americans podcast and co-founder of American Veterans for Ukraine, Paul Rieckhoff, co-host of The Majority Report, Emma Vigeland, and senior writer at The Dispatch, David Drucker. So, Tom, let's focus on one of these folks first. And just for clarity, we did this story yesterday, but so many more pardons came through that we felt it was important to follow up on it again, because the individuals that Donald Trump added are surprising, even for Donald Trump. And I want you to tell me about the man convicted of murder who was running a street gang from prison that Donald Trump commuted his sentence for.
We're talking about Larry Hoover, and this individual, prosecutors had to actually the visitors tag. So when people would go and visit Larry Hoover, who is in state prison on a murder charge that he ordered a murder as part of his activities associated with this gang, that they actually had to mic the visitors badges. And at one point, the people that were visiting got onto that fact, and they had to come up with a better badge. They would take the audio from that, relay it to another location in the prison, and then send it back to the FBI agents who are in their field office listening to these conversations, all in an effort, they said, and a jury later convicted, of running this gang for the course of nearly 25 years, from the early 1970s until 1995. And federal prosecutors in court, in the process where Hoover's been trying to get various clemency filings and various things before the court, federal prosecutors have said that at different points, he was making $100 million in profit, him and his family, a year from the sale of drugs in the greater Chicago area. And this is somebody who's doing this. The jury convicted from his jail cell on a state charge. A federal judge sentenced him to 6 life sentences. And because of the security concerns, they assigned him to Florence ADX, home of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, Richard Reed, the shoe bomber.
Supermax.
It's a supermax. He's spent most of his life since the late 1990s in effectively solitary confinement. And this is somebody who federal prosecutors say is still heralded as the leader of this gang. So it does raise questions about how we got to this point. There has been an aggressive effort lobbied primarily on behalf of Ye. People may know him better as Kanye West. This started in the Oval Office in 2018 when he raised Larry Hoover's name in that time when he was spending time with Donald Trump back then. And then there was a benefit concert involving Ye, Drake. Those two did not get along, and another individual in the rap community who's pretty high-profile, Jay Prince of Rap-A-Lot Records in Houston, brokered that truce so that they could speak out on Hoover's behalf.
Why were they speaking out for Hoover?
Well, in Kanye West's case, he said at the Oval Office that this is somebody from Chicago. Obviously, Kanye West is from Chicago. That he could have seen himself going down the path of Larry Hoover, and he believed that Hoover was in the process of speaking out for his community and trying to do good for his community. Obviously, along the way here, Katie, federal judges and federal prosecutors and a federal jury have disagreed with that sentiment.
David, I'm curious to understand the justification if you're Donald Trump. You're somebody who ran on a law enforcement, law and order platform. You're somebody who ran on getting drugs off the street. Talk about the opioid crisis. He's going after fentanyl. And yet you are commuting the sentence. And just to be clear, he's not leaving prison. He might be transferred from that supermax back to a state prison in Illinois for those state charges. But to even get involved in a case like that, how does it benefit Donald Trump?
Well, I don't know that there's a rational explanation for how it benefits Donald Trump. But I think that Donald Trump likes to wield the pardon power because the people that he helps feel indebted to him. The people that he does favors for feel indebted to him. And he's never experienced any political blowback for being such an aggressive user of the constitutional pardon power, right? I mean, his numbers fluctuate as the economy or perception of how the economy is doing fluctuates. Voters have never really voiced any problem in a measurable way that's going to matter to him over his use of the pardon power. Republican voters certainly don't care. And it's his way, I think, it's his way of using unilateral power in order to acquire more supporters. It's something he loves doing, whether it's tariffs or executive orders, and this is just an extension of that.
Are they never going to care, no matter what, David? I mean, a lot of tax cheats,
I don't want to say no matter what,
a lot of
ever, because I
corruption
can't.
here.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
know what you're
wondering. I mean,
getting
we
at
talk
here,
about
but
this all the time. I wonder if if you ever sense any tension, any. Gosh, taken all together, I'm not so sure how I feel about this any longer.
Look, I think with some Republican voters and with some Republican politicians, there's always a bit of uneasiness from time to time with certain things Donald Trump does and says. But I think so much of this is baked into the cake in terms of how voters look at him. He did not campaign as being somebody who was not going to do this sort of thing. He did it before, and he said he was going to do more of it, and they elected him anyway. And so there is no shock value. And his support within the Republican Party remains extremely strong, despite this and other issues related to corrupt practices that we could talk about. And so, sure, could people's opinions change? They could. I will say, though, that after almost a decade of covering Donald Trump as a politician, nothing, at least with Republican voters, has ever changed, no matter what he's ever done and ever said.
It's true. It's an emotional response to him. It broke in 2020, but it certainly came back with a fury in 2024. Let's talk about another one of the examples here. This is Trump pardoning an Army officer who refused to follow COVID safety orders. Paul.
So they're all bad and dangerous, but I think the ones around the military are especially bad and dangerous because what Trump is saying is you don't have to follow military law and you don't have to follow orders. The example you're talking about is Lieutenant Mark Bashaw, who said he wasn't going to follow COVID-19 protocols. Now, no matter how you feel about COVID-19 protocols, they were law at the time. They were direct orders at the time, and Lieutenant refused them. So Trump has now pardoned him. There's also Army Sergeant Earl Lamont Smith, who stole and sold thousands of military computers. Just right out in the open, FBI found him, tried him, convicted him. He admitted it. And Trump is saying he's off the hook, too. So it's a really dangerous precedent that he's sending and a message he's sending to the military. You don't have to follow orders. You don't have to follow the rules. You don't have to follow the law. We know he says that often, and he celebrates people who break the rules and go around the law. But it's especially dangerous in the military, where we need good order and discipline.
Listen, all presidents pardon. All presidents have the authority to pardon. All presidents in modern history have used the power of the pardon. Usually that comes at the end of a term. Emma, usually it's at the end of a term. But the fact that this is coming at the beginning of his term, remember, he started on day one by pardoning all of the January 6 protesters and rioters who were convicted, including the very, very, very violent ones. The fact that he's doing it so early does make you ask the question, is he sending a message to others? Hey, listen, if you want something, just donate to a super PAC or be really vocal about me, be really vocal about all the good that I'm doing. Give me a reason to help you by helping me.
I think that's absolutely right. And it's so funny because you don't really hear him talking about draining the swamp too much anymore because he has fully embraced the swamp down in Washington. It's also quite funny that he tries to present himself as somebody who's interested in serious criminal justice reform when, as you point out, it's mostly about flattering his buddies or trying to get something in exchange, like the tariff policy was. It's about consolidating his power and also having all of the countries come to him to make a deal so he can be, to borrow from George W. Bush, the decider in these instances. But the Trump administration is a mass incarceration administration, and that should not go unsaid when he's trying to position himself as anything but that. Pam Bondi is a former lobbyist for a private prison company. Tom Homan, his border czar, is also heavily involved in private prisons financially. And so this is not an administration that actually wants to take on criminal justice reform. They are warehousing immigrants as we speak without due process. As you see down in Texas, detention facilities, people who are being held there spelling out SOS in the prison yard so that people pay attention to them. The only reason that Trump is engaging in this is for personal flattery, for personal corruption, and that's how I think you have to view his entire second go-around as president.
Well, one of the things that's been surprising, I mean, I say surprising as if I haven't been following this for 10 years, but I guess still surprising, is just the how out in the open it all is. And when you heard the pardon czar, Alice Marie Johnson, talking today. I know they're going to use their voices and their platform to uplift the president's agenda. Is that the strategy? Make it out in the open, act like it's just a normal thing to do, David, and no one's going to question it?
Well, I don't know if it's a strategy, but I think what Donald Trump has learned over the past 10 years is that there's little he can do that costs him political support. I mean, he mismanaged COVID, and that cost him re-election. He fomented a riot at the Capitol and remained at the top of the Republican Party and was reelected in 2024. So you tell me why anything should make him think twice. And I suppose if he was running for reelection, maybe that would make him think twice. There are things he would stop short of doing in his first term because he was advised that it might hamper his 2020 reelection. With reelection off the table and having done so well politically after everything we could list that voters we might think might object to, if I'm Donald Trump, nothing would really make me think twice from a political standpoint.